and welcome. I'm Shri, and today I'll be talking about We Are Okay, a novel by Nina LaCour. Keep listening to learn.
But how is this? Can a force like this pulls me under? Why should I pretend that gravity will suddenly surrender? It's just human nature.
We Are Okay is a novel published in 2017 by author Nina LaCour, who also wrote the award-winning Hold Still. We Are Okay is narrated by the main character, Marin, a freshman at a university in New York who previously lived in California. The novel has 234 pages, which are separated into 30 chapters, each having about 5 to 7 pages. The book is also interspersed with flashbacks from the months preceding the actual timeline of the book, which are distinguished from the main timeline, with month names underneath the chapter numbers. This book can be classified as a coming-of-age novel, as well as young adult contemporary fiction, and a novel about mental health. So, this book is about Marin. Marin is a freshman at a university in New York who left her home in San Francisco, desperate to leave behind the trauma and people of her past, after her grandfather, whom she lived with after her mother's death, died. Marin is the only student staying at the university over the month-long winter break, the only one with no home to return to. The winter is stormy and snowy and lonely. One day after break starts, Marin's best friend from San Francisco, Mabel, comes to visit her for 3 days. Marin feels unprepared for Mabel's arrival, which brings with it the past she tried so urgently to run away from. Marin and her grandpa were very close with one another, as they were each other's only family left. However, each had a steadfast respect for privacy and never entered the other's bedroom. This secure privacy allowed her grandfather to keep many secrets, which are revealed to the reader near the end of the book. Marin never knew much about her mother, since she had died when she was only 3 or 4 years old. All she knew was that her mother died in a surfing accident at the beach near their house. However, after Marin's grandfather died and she finally entered his room for the first time, she found an entire room dedicated to her mother. He had hundreds of pictures from her, documents from her life, letters she wrote. The entire time that Marin was with her grandfather, he was living with a ghost, while simultaneously hiding even the smallest memory and stories of this ghost from Marin. Marin felt betrayed by her father, even angry. More than her grandfather's death, this betrayal was more crushing. She loses her ability to trust in people and doesn't want anything to remind her of her former home, which is why she ignores hundreds of texts from Mabel over the course of 6 months and runs away from San Francisco almost an entire month before moving at her university. When Mabel finally arrives at university to stay with Marin for 3 days over winter break, they're awkward with one another. However, as time goes on, it's easier to talk to each other and they fall into their old familiarity. However, they still can't breach the topics of importance. Before they can talk about anything like that, Mabel reveals that she has come with the intent to convince Marin to go home to San Francisco with her for the remainder of winter break, and to stay with her and her parents during summers and other breaks. Marin can't even fathom going back and being forced to confront everything that she has tried so hard to erase. However, circumstances conspire. In the cold, dark night without power, unlit by any candles or lamps, in the kind groundskeeper's house, Marin is finally able to talk to Mabel for the first time. In a cathartic expulsion of pent-up feelings, she explains some of her story and what happened in the 6 months away from home. The following day, once they are returned to her dorm, Marin finally reveals to Mabel what her grandfather was hiding and tells her why she ran away right afterwards. When Mabel leaves for home the next day, they're not perfect, but they are okay. That night, Mabel returns with her father and mother, who felt compelled to fly in from San Francisco to be with Marin for Christmas after listening to her story. They spend Christmas with her, and Mabel's mother, Anna, helps Marin feel whole again and convinces her to live with them and let them take her in. Marin finally agrees and is able to come to terms with the debts, and in doing so, finds a new family. This book has some really great, intense quotes, and the following 5 are my personal favorites. The first is, I must have shut grief out, found it in books, cried over fiction instead of the truth. The truth was unconfined, unadorned. There was no poetic language to it, no yellow butterflies, no epic floods. There wasn't a town trapped under water or generations of men with the same name destined to repeat the same mistakes. The truth was vast enough to drown in. This quote does a really good job of explaining why Marin reads really sad books. It's easier to read about sadness that is beautifully written than to feel sadness from within, which has no beauty, only raw emotion. It also reveals why Marin ran away from the reality which faced her after her grandfather's death. She simply can't bring herself to recognize her own sadness. The next quote is, "Life is paper thin and fragile. Any sudden change could rip it wide open." Marin says this when thinking about Mabel's offer to come live with her in San Francisco. This quote exposes one of Marin's reasons for being unable to say yes to this offer. She only just learned how to live in New York, away from home and away from her past. She can't even think about stepping right back into it all and seeing all the people and places again, which only remind her of all of her pain. She only just made it away and can't imagine going back. This quote shows why it takes so much convincing for her to finally agree, and also shows how hurt she is. She can't even go back to her hometown where she lived her entire life because of all of her trauma. The third quote is, "I could say the night felt magical, but that would be embellishment. That would be romanticization. What it actually felt like was life." This quote is referring to a flashback to a night Marin and Mabel spent on the beach with all of their other senior friends. Marin and Mabel were truly happy and living. This flashback in the quote shows the difference from then to the present. Now, Marin is by herself in a cold, lonely place, living in only the loosest sense of the word. This quote shows how depressed Marin has become and how far she's fallen since. The fourth quote is, "The trouble with denial is that when the truth comes, you aren't ready." Marin narrates this in a flashback when Mabel leaves for college. Mabel left much earlier than Marin, and all of a sudden, after years of friendship, Marin's best friend was gone. She was in denial about the departure and chose not to think about it, but when the day finally arrived, she was hit like a ton of bricks by reality. Just like with her grandfather's death, Marin tried to ignore the truth until she had no choice but to recognize it. The last quote, as well as the last line in the book, is, "We were on a beach, and the sun was bright, and I was in my mother's arms. She was singing to me. I can't hear the song, but I can hear the tone of her voice. And when the singing stopped, she rested her face on my head. The whole world was out there. Each someday and each kiss, each specific kind of heartbreak. The whole world was out there, but I was in my mother's arms, and I didn't know it yet." When Marin hugs Anna and becomes the newest member of her family, she finally remembers something about her mom. This new memory is the only thing of her mother that Marin has. In this quote, she reflects on everything that happened from her mother's death to the end of the book. Every heartbreak and sorrow and memory formed in those 15 plus years. This new memory heralds in a new future. In her new mother, Anna's arms, she is shielded by every someday that awaits, just as she was when she was young, and in her now dead mother's arms. I hope you liked those quotes as much as I. So now I'm going to read my favorite full page from the book. "You go through life thinking there's so much you need. Your favorite jeans and sweater, the jacket with the fall fur lining to keep you warm, your phone and your music and your favorite books, mascara, Irish breakfast tea and cappuccinos from Trouble Coffee. You need your yearbooks, every stiffly posed school dance photo, the notes your friend slipped into your locker. You need the camera you got for your 16th birthday and the flowers you dried. You need your notebooks full of the things you learned and don't want to forget. You need your bedspread, white with black diamonds. You need your pillow. It fits the way you sleep. You need magazines promising self-improvement. You need your running shoes and your sandals and your boots, your grade report from the semester you got straight A's, your prom dress, your shiny earrings, your pendants on delicate chains. You need your underwear, your light-colored bras and your black ones, the dream catcher hanging above your bed, the dozens and dozens of shells in glass jars." The cab was waiting outside the station. "The airport," I said, but no sound came out. "The airport," I said, and we pulled away. "You think you need all of it. until you leave with only your phone, your wallet, and a picture of your mother. In this scene, Marin is leaving San Francisco right after giving her statement to the police about her grandfather's disappearance in the ocean and his death. It provides a contrast between her previous life and what was now her life. This is where her full transformation from a happy senior in high school to a broken, hurt girl is described. She used to spend money on clothes and material objects and coffee, but after her grandfather's death and the secrets that came with it, she only needed the absolute essentials. She didn't care about anything extra or any perceived necessities. She only took what she absolutely could not live without. I chose this excerpt because it is really well written. It lists all the objects that used to be dear to Marin and then shows that nothing really mattered to her after the death. It feels genuine because everyone has objects that they think they could never leave, but in reality... Okay, moving on to literary terms. This book is really rich in examples of literary terms. These are 4 big ones. First, setting. The setting is really important to the book. The most emotional scenes couldn't even happen without the setting. The setting also contributes to the mood of the book. Marin is depressed and lonely, and the dark skies convey these feelings. The forced seclusion by the weather matches the emotional seclusion of Marin. Next, allusion. Marin alludes to many literary works: The Turn of the Screw, Jane Eyre, and 100 Years of Solitude. She also often refers to the ghosts in all 3 of these books. The quote on the screen refers to the ghosts in all 3 of these books, successively. Third, foreshadowing. One example of foreshadowing involves the beach at the very beginning of the book. When Marin is trying to meditate, she imagines the beach. She imagines the sand and grass and glass and birds and waves, but abruptly stops because she can't handle anymore. This abrupt stop shows that she has some intense emotions associated with the ocean. And finally, flashback. Flashback chapters are spread throughout the novel. A lot of Marin's backstory is revealed through flashbacks, such as the details surrounding her grandpa's death and the discovery of the room filled with memories of her mother, as well as how and when Marin leaves San Francisco. If you have a heart, you'll truly enjoy this book. So that's why, for my rating, out of 5 stars, I give this book 4.5 stars. Don't miss out on reading this great book. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget, we lose ourselves in books, and we find ourselves there too. So don't stop reading.